Happy GDC, everybody. It's Todd Mitchell, and you're listening to the Game Dev Breakdown podcast. Our second guest of GDC week is Mr. Kalle Hiitola, who is the CTO and co-founder of Next Games, and he gets to work with some really incredible intellectual property. I'm going to let you get it from him, and I think you're really going to like it. Here's my chat with Kalle. Okay, I am ready if you are ready.
Yeah, sure. Shoot me.
Okay, Kalle Hiitola of CTO and co-founder of Next Games. How are you doing?
Great. How you do?
I'm just fine, really enjoying GDC. I know that I get to enjoy it a little more than you do because you're very busy. But how's the experience treating you so far?
Very well, actually. It's really interesting to see all the sort of industry peers and talk with people from different companies. And of course, there's tons of meetings and tons of interesting things going on. So yeah,
absolutely,
it's a great experience.
I want to start by saying congratulations on the success of Next Games and especially things like The Walking Dead, No Man's Land. You guys have licenses to do tie-in games for The Walking Dead. Obviously, that's huge. And beyond that, you've taken that license and turned it into just millions and millions of players reach. So how's it going right now?
Well, firstly, thank you. It's doing great. And we sort of feel really happy to be able to work with such big licenses or IP, like The Walking Dead. Of course, it was really a great chance for us in order to get that license. Like we got really lucky on that one. Of course, it's hard work, but yeah, it's very interesting to work with it, and how we can incorporate the whole IP into a game is something that is truly fun.
And since you launched No Man's Land, there's been one more Walking Dead title come out since then?
It's coming out. So we have The Walking Dead, Our World is coming out now. Should be launched within this half of the year. But cool. It's currently in soft launch, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, we're really looking forward to it.
And that's going to be sort of an augmented reality experience?
Yeah, it's augmented reality and location-based. So
cool.
Think about walking around, chasing zombies on the streets, being able to see them do augmented reality, actually putting them in a scene.
Awesome. And tell me, what did your career look like before Next Games? Because you've been around for, 15 plus years in the industry now.
Well, yeah, in tech industry, but
sure.
not in gaming industry. I'm actually a bit of an oddball for the founders of the Next Games because I'm the only one who didn't have exactly any industry experience from gaming side of things. But I've been working within the IT and tech industry for, it's going to be 20 years this year.
Wow, okay.
So started off straight up from high school, become an entrepreneur with all these, hype around new media before the millennium, and had my first startup there, and then I moved forward as I sold that one, and I started a new one. I think this is my 5th company that I'm working now
wow.
with. So sort of like a long way getting here, but we working with like. In the end of the day, when you're talking about, as my focus has been mostly on the server side of things, if you think about like any service that you create, is it a game or is it let's say a video on demand service or anything like that I used to work with, there aren't that much of difference on how they're built and what kind of technologies you need to use them, because it's all about being able to serve content, being able to store the player or store any information, and being able to scale that back end.
Sure.
Of course, being sort of the other side has been a great learning experience for me is the client side of things and everything related to that. Although it wasn't like new to me because I've been tinkering with games ever since I was 5 years old. So been doing them on my spare time. So it wasn't like completely out of the blue.
Sure, absolutely. But it is an awesome experience to take that sort of passion and turn it into, the kind of numbers you're seeing with like the No Man's Land project. What are the going numbers right now? You guys are just scores and scores of players.
Yeah, we host around 500,000 daily active users, so it's quite a big portion of players coming into the game each and every day. And of course, it takes some challenge to host those players on our servers because we're pretty server heavy as our architecture is built that way. But yeah, and then there's a great community that we are constantly talking with. We have great game masters who are like interacting with the game community. on daily basis. We create them events, and we have all sorts of content that is really related to the show and how the show is progressing. So
Sure. And obviously it helps to have that Walking Dead license, but the game's been around long enough now that if it wasn't fun on its own 2 feet, it would have not done well the way it's doing now. So it's gained a lot of traction, and I think it shows that the game itself is very well done. And I wonder, tell me a little bit about the technology under the game. Like, what does it look like to make No Man's Land run?
Well, firstly, we use Unity as our game engine.
Okay.
And that's probably the main entry point for the technology things side. Of course, it makes our life a whole lot easier when we don't have to focus on creating our own game engine and worrying about how do we handle assets and things like that.
Sure.
Instead, we can just rely on the technology that Unity is providing. And secondly, we have built the whole game in a data-driven way. So every value you have in the game, every economy value you have within the game is all driven through data, so we can tweak any of those values, which is very important to make sure that we can maintain the game for a long time.
Right.
Because you need to be pretty sure that it's in balance, so the players don't feel that the game is unfair to them.
Right.
And secondly, we built everything on the server side. We built on top of Azure. That gave us great tools in order to run the game, and as we wanted to be able to run the same game logic on client and server, Azure was a great pick for us, because on Unity you write the code on C#, and natively if you want to run C# on any platform, Windows platform is the best solution for there.
Sure. Now, hearing a little bit about your background, it makes me wonder if the choice to go with Azure was in large part your decision, because you had sort of brought a background from outside games at a time when gaming wasn't doing as much with Azure, I don't think. So was that kind of something you brought to the table and said, why don't we do this?
Well, yeah, it was mainly it was another founder, Jaakko Jumisko, who was our sort of technical guy on the client side, and together we discussed how we want to do it and what would be the best solution for us. And it all sort of started from the idea that firstly, if we want to make sure that our games are fair to the players, we have to prevent cheating. That was the first idea that we had there. So then we just started thinking about, okay, if we want to prevent cheating, how do you achieve that? Well, the first thing you need to do is never trust the client, because you can never trust the information that the device itself is sending, because it's relatively easy to boof that information. So you can just change it by doing a man-in-the-middle attack or whatever tools you want to use, or just cracking open the APK on Android and just creating a custom game, basically.
Yeah.
So that was one of the steps. And then from there we thought, okay, if we don't trust the client, we will have to have a mechanism where we run the game logic also on the server side in a deterministic way, so we can have a smooth experience, but at the same time validate everything that happens on the server side. And if something doesn't match up on the server side, we need to be able to just tell to the client that you need to reload your state and start over from your last save, basically. So we created that system by running the same logic in a deterministic way on the client and server. So the server is always the authoritative side of things. So that came to us to a conclusion, like, okay, then if we do that, we need to actually run C# code on the server side. On which cloud provider would we then run it? And it was 2013. Our options were quite limited. You had the usual suspects, like AWS was very much just serving virtual machines, really raw kind of services. Google Cloud was hardly existing. They had App Engine. It was very limited.
Yeah.
And Microsoft then, they had a sort of, to me, it felt like if AWS was the version 1.0 of cloud providers, like Microsoft felt like at least like a 1.5 or version 2, because they had a lot of managed services. And that also fit very well in our philosophy, how we want to run the games, is that we want to use as much managed services as we can. And of course with that, that we can run on Windows. Back then there was no option running, no reasonable option to running the C# code on Linux. So if we wanted the best performance, so Windows servers made a whole lot of sense, and cloud services back in the day, that was just a perfect solution for us. And in addition to this cheat prevention, also doing this way, the code, we were actually able to reduce the work amount that we need to do because the same code was running on the server side, so you didn't need to do a specific server-side validation code because you were just using the exact same bits of code on both sides of the fence, basically.
Sure. Well, it's extremely cool. You guys got to sort of help blaze a trail for other game studios, and I think, from what it sounds like, that's part of what you're bringing to GDC this year. You're having a presentation tomorrow.
Yeah.
In room 2009 West Hall, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. it looks like from my notes, called "How to Run Massively Scaling Mobile Games on Microsoft Azure." So give us sort of the highlights that you're going to present to people tomorrow.
Well, it's a lot about the lessons we learned around how to run it and the problems we faced and how did we overcome them, and then like what are the cornerstones that we are using with our technology. So it's a really sort of like lessons learned type of lecture.
Awesome. What's an example of something that you guys wish you had known back then that you're trying to sort of fill people in on now?
Well, I would say, there's some easy ones to pick. For example, some of the ways that C# works on Unity doesn't always work the same way on Windows or on a real C# machine.
Sure.
So we quite quickly we found out, which is like now obvious, but for a while we thought it could work with like float numbers. Obviously don't work the same way. Or then, if you have a list, because the string hashing is different, you might have within a list you have items in a different location, and when you have deterministic model where the model should be an exactly same representation of data on both sides of on client and server, if you have an item on a list in a different order, that will mess things up eventually. But it takes some time to figure it out.
Yeah.
So we would have had some nights more sleep if we wouldn't know that before.
It makes good sense, and nothing is worse than a little discrete problem like that.
Yeah.
So we spoke with James Gwartzman of PlayFab yesterday, and we sort of got to speaking about the challenges of smaller teams transforming their one-and-done game launch projects into more of a games-as-a-service model, sort of trying to enhance the longevity of their projects for players and things like that. What sort of do you think this is more approachable now for small teams to tackle with sort of the maturity of these tools that are available? Is it a much easier, lower barrier of entry for a small team now?
Well, yes and no. Of course, like the tools are great and they help a lot, but it's still about like I think one of the fundamental problems there, or the biggest problems to solve, is the fact that you need to actually be really careful with your data design and data engineering, how you're going to structure data for future, because when you're developing a game, you often structure your data in a way that it's easy to develop. So all your, so let's say your game economy data or any kind of configuration, you're very focused on making sure that it works while you're doing development. But it might be that as you're creating the structure for the data, doing the development, it's increasingly hard to actually run live games on top of that.
Yeah.
You might end up in a situation where you have actually put all the data in one file, for example. And then if you think about the situation that you would need to actually serve that file over the server to the client and into the game servers to make a change or present a new event or a new bundle to buy or something like that. And you end up like doing a change on a file that includes everything. Well, how do you know that somebody else is not tinkering with the file at the same time? Or how do you know you don't accidentally change something that you shouldn't be changing? It becomes a bit more riskier. So then from design perspective, it would be better to start designing those file structures and that content structure all the way from the very beginning of the product to understand like how do you going to run the live game in the first place, and what are the things that you want to change in the live game. What kind of events you're going to be running? What kind of offerings, or do you have anything else that you want to change in the live game pretty early on? But that might also make your development a bit harder. So, but with tools, it's obviously now easier to cover that content and that information, but it becomes harder and harder as the requirements increase. So if you think about how much things are changing or how much live content these days games do have, it's just increasing amount of things that you should be able to switch on a fly without actually hopefully even have a need to provide a new client to App Store. So it's a lot about creating dynamic content into the game, so you need to do a lot of design around that. Tools, of course, like take the pain of actually delivering that data away from there, but they are still the actual work of figuring out how to do it within the game.
It sounds like there's a lot of a change of mindset that has to happen very early on.
Yeah.
And that does that resonates with me, because I think for smaller teams that is probably maybe one of the biggest pain points, is thinking far enough into the future. I mean, how was the experience of scaling up for you guys as you launched games like No Man's Land? I mean, were you pretty well prepared for it, or were there surprises? I mean,
well, yeah. Of course, there's always surprises when you're launching games, but we were pretty well prepared on technical side of things, so that worked pretty well. But of course, like then, if you think about just the organizational level, you easily think that you have all the necessary people in order to run a live game, but pretty quickly you can find out that you're actually missing some points, and or the designer that you used is actually now so focused on new features that it might be hard to focus on live operations and things like that. You might realize that there will be a need for all sorts of new kind of positions just to run the live operation side of things. It's an interesting sort of times in that sense.
Mm-hmm. And what has the Next Games group looked like between then and now? Have you guys grown quite a bit, or?
Yeah, we were. I think when we launched No Man's Land 2 years ago, we were around 40 to 50 people. Mm-hmm. Now we're 120. So yeah, we've grown quite a bit, and it makes sense in a sense because we're working now with the Walking Dead Our World. Mm-hmm. We're also working with the game based on Blade Runner.
Okay,
the
cool.
franchise, and then we are also working with 2 other games that we yet haven't been announced. So we're basically now currently developing simultaneously 4 games in different phases. So, and 1 live game. So.
Gotcha. So when you set these games up in a smart way, do you find that it's a lot easier to sort of maintain the? You mentioned sort of live ops and things like that. Is that something you guys planned way back when, or have you guys sort of had to change the configuration so that you could sort of change things on the fly? I don't know how frequently you will put out a full-on update, for example.
Well, for the updates, we do on No Man's Land, we tend to do updates like every month almost. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we do them faster, sometimes we do them slower, but on average it's a month to 2 months, somewhere in there, depending on how big of a feature we're creating in the game or how much actually we're planning to put in that release. We try to think like it would be best to have like small releases as often as possible, but that does have a side effect of, as we have a big game, I think the download side is around 300 megabytes. So if the users need to download that 300 megabytes too often, there's a chance that they churn from the game because they just don't want to keep on updating, and there's data plans and things like that. Yeah. And especially in the US, compared to Finnish data plans, they're way more stricter here in US. Yeah. So that's one thing to take in consideration, and it has been evolved in live operation way, because earlier on we weren't able to be running multiple game versions concurrently. Mm-hmm. These days on No Man's Land we can run like the older version and the latest version in parallel. So users don't have to actually update into the latest client. Some of the features will shut down if it's necessary. So you might see in guild chat, you might see that, hey, in order to continue using the guild chat, you need to upgrade in the latest version, or in order to play something, you need to upgrade to the latest version, but you could still play. And sometimes they can even run in parallel, and there's nothing that you cannot do while still running on an older version. So, but that was a big technical thing to do in order to do that, so we can now update more often and not be afraid of people churning because they need to download. They can take their time. They have their weekends when they're home. They have Wi-Fi. They have a better possibility to do the update than just being dictated by us when they need to do it.
That's extremely cool that you can run the different versions. I never really thought about that, but I could see the need for that.
Yeah, but it does also bring a lot of problems.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Because if you think about content and content versioning and which content is compatible with which version and how do you handle that, it becomes kind of jungle.
Speaking of sort of unexpected, well, first let me ask you this. When you were planning the sort of data you wanted to capture so you could really keep a sense of the players and what was going on, what's working, what's not working, when the game just exploded like this and brought in all these millions of players, does it seem a little bit overwhelming now trying to determine where to look and how to interpret things at that scale?
Yeah, of course, sometimes it's hard to sort of understand what's the underlying motive of players, why they're doing something or why something is working better than the other things. So we do a lot of like A/B testing to figure it out. But it's always, as the game has also evolved into a quite large entity and there's a lot of things changing, it's sometimes really hard to change a very specific thing in the game. So you could more easily measure it through an A/B testing. So often what happens is that you try to change just one thing, but accidentally you actually change two things, and then when you start to figure out what was the cause of a change of behavior, you might end up drawing a blank because you don't know what was it the intentional thing that you did or unintentional thing that you accidentally did.
Yeah.
So that makes it, and of course, like understanding players. Of course, it helps that you have a lot of players because you have the vocal players also among them, and you have a way of talking to them. So we use our support team is sort of like our voice with our players. They are very interactive with them, and they talk a lot of with them. We have like special groups and even Slack channels with some of our players in order to be able to talk and understand how they feel with the player. We have invited some of the top guilds to visit our offices and just give us feedback and things like that.
Yeah. Do you find that those more vocal players are a pretty good representation of the rest of the player base, or sometimes not? Sometimes
not. It's the same thing in life in usual. You go in a meeting, you have a vocal people in there. Will they represent the consensus of the meeting or not?
Yeah.
Remains to be determined. Of course, you have to have like a way of also asking from those who are not really that vocal to make sure that their voice is also heard.
And just for fun, tell me, it's got to be very cool working on a licensed property like this, but is it challenging? I mean, do you find yourself spending a lot of extra time making sure that you guys are working well and keeping your brand happy and everything like this, or is it not as big a deal?
It's not that big of a deal. Of course, we have a very good relationship with the brand holders. So, of course, it would if there would be a difficulty on that area, it would make things a whole lot more difficult. But as we are very close to AMC, that the host brand, it's sort of like a very easygoing. And then as we develop the game, I think all parties saw that we really sort of understand the brand and how we work with it. And we did a lot of work around it, and we always do a lot of work with different brands in order to understand it. We sort of start very early on to develop the idea of not only like what gameplay would fit this brand, but more like talking internally, having workshops, figuring out like what really speaks to the fans of that brand. So we always start the idea how we work with brands from the fans and how the fans would see the world to become alive and what they would see to be ideal for a gameplay within sort of how they would win a gameplay would represent the brand and all the world of the brand. Mm-hmm. So it all starts from fans, and then as this is our philosophy how we work, it makes also living with the brand holders so much easier because they know that we sort of really understand the internals of the brand.
Cool. And were they sort of excited about the idea of jumping into new sort of uncharted territory like augmented reality games, or is it more of we're sort of nervous,
I think everybody's super excited about augmented reality and how cool it is, and then it just, every time you show it to somebody, that just brings a smile on their face. So I think it just tells a lot about the potential and how much fun it is.
Yeah. Well, it's extremely cool. We're running close on time. I would encourage everybody who is at GDC to make sure they check out the How to Run Massively Scaling Mobile Games on Microsoft Azure presentation. Again, that's in room 2009 West Hall tomorrow, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. And Kalle, thank you so much for this. This is, I think, really going to entertain a lot of people. And I certainly wish you guys the best of luck with the new game and the existing projects as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was fun. Thanks.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thanks again to our guest Kalle. He was really great to talk to. I really encourage everybody to check him out. If you enjoy the Game Dev Breakdown podcast, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Player FM. It goes on and on. Check us out on social media. Reach out, let us know you're enjoying it. Hit us up with your questions, and we will continue to bring you new stuff all week here at GDC. So thanks everybody for my guest Kalle Hiitola and for CodeWritePlay.com. My name's Todd Mitchell. We'll talk to you real soon.